What is going on, Headliner Nation? Jake, Fantasy Headliners. Hopefully everybody's doing well out there today. We're talking about potential league-winning running backs here for 2021 fantasy football. And a lot of people will make videos and be like, oh, Derrick Henry, he's a league winner. Yeah, you got to take him like the first 3-4 picks. So I hope he is, because you're spending a high pick on him. No, we're looking at the guys a little bit further down the list. Maybe the guys who the industry is off on, right? Maybe there's some things lining up here this offseason that it's causing their ADP to fall. People just don't believe in them. People look at the overall situation, but what if we're wrong on some of these guys and we get a huge discount on a top 12 running back? I mean, look at James Robinson just last year. Had I sat out here the end of June last year and said, hey, James Robinson is a running back one, you guys need to draft him early, he's going to help carry your fantasy football team, you would have thought I was absolutely nuts. Well, it happened, right? Look at Mark Ingram in 2019, James White 2018, guys who really overproduce what they're really expected to do coming into a season. These aren't going to be rookies, right? These are guys that have fallen by the wayside. They're dropping down the ADPs. They've struggled with injuries, whatever it may be. But if we're wrong on these guys and they actually come out here in 2021 and ball out, they're going to help carry your fantasy team here this year. It may allow you to take one of these guys a little bit later, grab that early wide receiver or early tight end, give yourself a better overall roster, because then you can have one of these guys as maybe your number 3, your 4 option, right, for your running back position. Now, typically, I like to have 3 running backs by the end of round 5. But what this gives you is that potential to find that lottery ticket a little bit later, and that's what we're talking about here today. Got a few running backs that we're just going to pay attention to, right? We don't want to just write them off too quickly. Before I get into the names, just a quick reminder, our draft guide is scheduled to drop here any second. If you haven't pre-ordered yours yet, now is the time to do it. Over 600 virtual pages of everything you need to help you be ready for the 2021 fantasy football season. So head over to our website, thefantasyheadliners.com, and get yours ordered right now. But let's head into the running backs. The first guy we're going to be talking about, maybe some of you guys are going to be seeing like, yeah, I like this guy, but I just don't know about the situation and what's going to happen here in 2021. But we got to talk David Montgomery once again. And here's what's crazy. We did this episode last year also for some potential league winners, and on the thumbnail was David Montgomery. He was one of our picks last year. How did David Montgomery do for you down the stretch in 2020? Yeah, dude absolutely balled out. But right now, he's currently sitting at running back 20, the 3rd pick in the 4th round. I get it. I mean, Tariq Cohen, he's coming back, and they signed Damian Williams here in the offseason, and both of those guys could hurt the value of David Montgomery. But this is last year's running back 4 overall, and now he's fallen to running back 20 in the 4th round. But what if everyone is just blowing this out of proportion and just really, really overthinking it? I watched a lot of film on David Montgomery prepping for this video, and to me, it is more than apparent this dude has arrived in the NFL. If you look at his 2019 tape compared to his 2020 tape, it's almost night and day. The guy has just, learned that patience in the backfield to let his blocks develop. He runs strong. He was 4th in the NFL in broken tackles with 29. That's only 5 less than Derrick Henry. Now, as stupid as Matt Nagy has been in the past, I mean, he can't screw this one up, right? I mean, can he? I mean, sure, Tariq Cohen coming back could have, a huge impact in the passing work that we saw David Montgomery get last year. But even if David Montgomery loses half of his pass work, which was 27 receptions and 215 yards, which would be half, he would still have finished running back 9 overall inside the top 10. Don't just pencil Cohen in to take it all back either. Look at the pass catching stats from David Montgomery just last year. He finished top 10 in the NFL among all running backs in targets, receiving yards, receptions, routes run, and yards per reception. Dude is more than capable of handling the passing down work himself. Plus, we know the work on the ground is not going the way of Tariq Cohen, right? That's not what he's going to come in and eat into. It's not like David Montgomery got some crazy volume and then, when Tariq Cohen went down. That's not how it happened. In fact, David Montgomery only had 34 more total touches in 2020 than he did in 2019. It's just his efficiency really went up, and so did his red zone touches. I mean, heck, they went up to 53 touches inside the red zone, up from 35 in 2019. But here's what I love about David Montgomery and the potential league-winning aspect to him. He can be your running back 3. Maybe you want to go heavy running back early. if you find him right around the 4.3, that means you had the 10th overall pick, where you could grab somebody maybe like an Austin Eckler, follow that up in the 2.3 with a Najee Harris. Third round, maybe grab yourself a safe wide receiver in Keenan Allen at the end of the third, round it out with David Montgomery early fourth, and now all of a sudden you have Eckler, Najee, and Demont as your three-headed monster for your running backs, but yet still have a solid, reliable wide receiver one in Keenan Allen. What happens if we're wrong on David Montgomery and Tariq Cohen and Damian Williams really don't play that big of a role? All of a sudden, you have a top 5 overall running back in fantasy football that you got in the 4th round as your running back 3. If he does regress and he does take a huge step back, he's still your running back 3. I would almost bet that the dude has he's a lock to finish top 24, right? At worst, and you get him in the 4th round. I honestly am starting to come around a lot more on David Montgomery the more that I dove into him here for this video. So he is definitely somebody that could be a potential league winner if a lot of people are wrong about the usage of Cohen and Damian Williams coming into 2021. But here's another name. Same round. We're going sticking in the 4th round. And a lot of people, myself included, have hopped off the bandwagon of one Josh Jacobs. And he's currently running back 21 overall, the 6th pick in the 4th round in your fantasy football drafts. I mean, the signing of Kenyon Drake has tanked his value compared to a year ago, right? And like I said, I have to admit it, I hopped off the bandwagon as well before I really started looking at some of these numbers. Last year, Josh Jacobs was number 8 overall at the running back position, but now has suddenly fallen to running back 21 in ADP. But could the addition of Drake actually just be a little bit of a smokescreen covering up the potential that Josh Jacobs possesses? In 2020, Jacobs' efficiency numbers took a hit. With all the added touches he actually got worse. He saw 44 more touches in 2020 than he did in 2019, yet had 13 less total yards on the season. What really helped him in fantasy football was the touchdowns, right? He had 12 of them last year. Heck, Nick Chubb averaged more yards after contact than Jacobs just averaged in general. Even though he took a step forward in the passing game, those numbers didn't really inflate his overall statistics though, right? He had 45 targets, 33 receptions for 238 yards, and no touchdowns in the passing game. Maybe, just maybe, Drake is there to help a little bit more on the passing side of the football. The Raiders as a whole have the least accomplished wide receiver room maybe in the entire NFL, right? Henry Ruggs, Bryan Edwards, Hunter Renfrow, John Brown, Zay Jones, Willie Snead. No wide receiver on the roster has had more than 72 receptions in a season overall for their career. And then there is everything that happened with the offensive line, right? It's totally rebuilt now. Is it better? I don't know if I would go that far. And he for sure has a lot more going against him than maybe the likes of a David Montgomery, but the 200-plus touch potential is still there for Josh Jacobs. But here's the fact. We have a young running back capable of leading a backfield on a team with a below-average passing game. In 2020, he was one of only 4 running backs in the entire NFL to break 300 total touches. 4th in touchdowns with 12, 7th in runs over 15 yards with 9, 4th overall in evaded tackles with 84, and 5th in yards created with 446. Plus, he was 3rd in goal line carries with 16. If we were all wrong about Kenyon Drake coming in here and taking 30 to 40% of the work, Josh Jacobs is going to be a steal in the 4th round. He has a lot more risk than maybe a David Montgomery, in my opinion, because honestly, the Raiders, I don't understand a whole lot of what's going on with the Raiders. The misusage of Henry Ruggs last year kind of made him a wasted pick for 2020. What are they going to do here going forward? Why did they even sign Kenyon Drake? What is his role? A lot of question marks around the team, and then you got the whole offensive line issue, right? But with Josh Jacobs, maybe you play it a little bit safer, right? Maybe if you want to target Jacobs around the 4th to be your running back 3, you just pick the safer options early on in your draft. That would mean you have the 7th overall pick. Maybe you sign a Nick Chubb in the 1st round. Super safe, super solid, great floor, weekly basis. 2nd round, 6th pick, maybe you grab yourself one of the top wide receivers, somebody who's going to eat up targets and be a safe option weekly in DeAndre Hopkins. 3rd round. Then now you got CEH, which is a great value once again behind one of the most upgraded offensive line in all of the NFL. We know the touches are going to be there. He's going to be involved in the passing game. Great option there in the third round. And then you grab Josh Jacobs in the fourth as your number 3, potentially a guy that is a top 10, top 12 option if we've all read into this the wrong way, right? A lot of people come into the season with narratives, right? They're trying to figure it out ahead of time. It's kind of what we try to do, but we're not always right. The writing on the wall is there for Josh Jacobs to still produce. It's just a risk, and if you minimize that risk, then it becomes okay to take it. It all depends how the beginning of my draft goes for me, though. If I don't get those super solid, safe options, if I'm already super risky in the first 3 rounds, probably not going to continue to take risk in the fourth, right? Josh Jacobs, as of right now, though, has that intriguing top 10, top 12 finish in him. What about this guy? And he has been a roller coaster this offseason. What about Melvin Gordon of the Denver Broncos? And he's currently running back 30 overall, the 8th pick in the 7th round. But we all love the value here until Denver went out and drafted Javonte Williams out of North Carolina, right? And I love me some Javonte Williams out of North Carolina. He is the future of this backfield in Denver. Dude is like Chubb Light out there on the field. They're similar skill sets, and the guy can put up huge numbers. But what if we're expecting too much from him too early on? And Melvin comes out and absolutely dominates the touches this year in the final year of his deal. They work in Javonte Williams slowly. They run Melvin Gordon into the ground, and we all see that from time to time with rookies, right? We want them to come out and just be huge right off the bat. And then they come out and they see a minimal role, and they're slowly worked in to an offense. What if that's the case here in Denver? Or what if they can both be a thing in Denver? Gordon only had 215 rush attempts and 32 receptions in 2020. That's 247 total touches. All other running backs in Denver combined for 153 touches. So the volume is there for both Gordon and Williams to produce. Gordon may not be the most efficient guy, but he's gone over 1,100 total yards and had at least 10 touchdowns in 4 out of the last 5 years. Last year, finishing as running back 13 overall. Now we know Phillip Lindsay is gone. There's question marks at the quarterback position, right? Between Teddy B and Drew Lock. What could really help solidify the quarterback play would be an effective run game, right? I mean, that's the best way to take pressure off of a quarterback. But where it really gets interesting to me is Gordon not attending the OTAs here in the offseason, and backup running backs like Javonte Williams and Mike Boone and Royce Freeman getting a ton of looks from the coaching staff, right? That does not help the case of Melvin Gordon, especially with new GM George Patton, who came over from Minnesota and then made Mike Boone his first free agent signing. Gordon isn't the future there in Denver, and he knows that. But anything can happen when they kick off week 1. NFL teams want to win at any cost. And if Melvin Gordon comes out and starts off hot, all the offseason crap vanishes quickly. Now, I don't want to go out there and target Gordon in the 7th, but for those of you that do grab him around running back 30, you have the potential that he's going to be the number 1 in Denver again this year. To me, he's someone that's drafted by a team that maybe didn't go running back early, and they're just looking to stack a few guys in the mid-rounds and hope that some of them hit. He could easily be a team's 3rd running back option, and he still has top 15 potential. Plus, he's also a candidate for somebody maybe mid-season that you could trade, right? Maybe Melvin Gordon starts off pretty hot. You can trade him and flip him for a piece that you need before they start to transition some of that work to Javonte Williams as the season progresses. I don't want to draft him. I'm not going into drafts banking on the fact that I want to draft Melvin Gordon, but it's going to happen, right? Somebody's going to draft Melvin Gordon. He's not going to go undrafted. He's a flyer. He's a bench stash for the running back position for somebody in your fantasy football league, but the potential is there that if he comes out and balls out and plays for another contract for another team somewhere else, that you have yourself a pleasant surprise in the 7th round. Now, I mentioned a little bit earlier that a team that probably targets a Melvin Gordon is going to be one that didn't focus on running backs early in the draft, and they're just trying to fill needs in hopes that somebody hits. You could take maybe at the 8th pick in the 1st round a Devontae Adams, followed up in the 2nd with a DeAndre Hopkins. 3rd round, you go J.K. Dobbins. 4th round, you go Julio. I mean, Adams, Hopkins, and Julio could be a murderer's row for the wide receiver position. Follow that up with T.J. Hawkinson, another huge guy in line to get huge targets. In the 6th round, maybe a Chase Edmonds, follow that up with a Melvin Gordon. I don't love it, but when you talk about certain teams that want to build different ways, if you do want to go heavy pass catchers early, you're going to have to sacrifice somewhere, right? That's going to be the running back position, and a guy like Melvin Gordon as a third option could be somebody that could turn into a pleasant surprise here for your team in 2021 if you find yourself taking that risk. What about another guy that we've talked about quite a few times here in the offseason? And every time we mention him, there's comments down below saying, listen, this dude, he can't stay healthy, he's washed, he's no good, he's not even gonna play. Come on. It's James Conner of the Arizona Cardinals. And he's further down the list than any of these guys, right? Running back 34 into the 9th round. And when you look through the ADP, there are very few running backs in round 9 that are lined up to touch the ball right around 200 times. Let's see, you got no one. You got no one. There's no one else close in that range that could see that type of volume without multiple injuries having to happen to get them there. Everyone has written him off because of past injuries, and sure, he may not be that 300 touch guy anymore, but he doesn't need to be with Chase Edmonds there either. He needs to fill the Kenyon Drake role in Arizona. 15 to 18 touches a game, plus the goal line work, with one of the best offenses in all of the NFL with the Arizona Cardinals. I mean, look at it this way. We know he more than likely isn't going to play 17 games, right? That's pretty much a known fact, but we know that going in. So let's just say he only plays 13 games with 15 carries a game at his career average of 4.5 yards per carry. That's still 877 yards rushing, plus whatever he gets in the passing game. That's 1,000 total yards minimum, even if he only plays 13 games. And you're getting him in the 9th round as your running back 3, maybe even your running back 4 at that point. The offensive line in Arizona is improved. They brought in center Rodney Hudson from the Raiders. We know the defense is full of playmakers and a crazy pass rush, right? With Chandler Jones and J.J. Watt, the Cardinals can put up points in bunches, and you have to think they want to limit the hits on Kyler Murray and him running the football. That's why James Conner is there. Now listen, this is not some scientific fact, but I grew up in Arizona and spent almost 30 years there. There's something about the Valley that just helps extend the careers of athletes, right? You see it in all the different sports. A player in the second half of their career that's on the downswing goes to Arizona and they find the fountain of youth and, put together some super solid years. Not all pro years, but they kind of rejuvenate their career. I mean, look at the likes of Kurt Warner. We've seen Chris Johnson, right? Former running back, Rashard Mendenhall, Edgerrin James, Emmitt Smith. They all went to Arizona and kind of had a couple, solid years to end their careers. Now, we aren't expecting running back 1 numbers here, though, right? We're not expecting that from James Conner going in, but we've seen him do it before, and we know he's capable of putting up those numbers. So what's the risk, really, in the 9th round as a running back 4? What do you have to lose at that point? Sure, there's some other solid names that are out there, but what happens if we're wrong about James Conner and all of a sudden he goes out there and he plays 14, 15, 16 games? All of a sudden you got a guy who's top 15, top 20 easy, and you got him in the 9th round as running back 34 overall. Look at this potential draft that you could have right here. In the 1st round, Derrick Henry. 2nd round, DK Metcalf. Follow that up with Antonio Gibson, Chris Godwin, Myles Gaskin, Brandon Ayuk, Tom Brady, Big Bob Tunyon, and then James Conner in the 9th. I don't hate that whatsoever. That's a super solid lineup with safe options at the running back position. Then all of a sudden the risk that you took with Conner, which was already minimal, is basically non-existent now because you're not reliant on the guy. And if he turns out, you're going to be super happy here in 2021 fantasy football. You can see these type of players in every position, right? These are a few options at the running back position. We'll go through these for some wide receivers and tight ends and quarterbacks probably as well, but I want to make sure that we put this out there, right? A lot of people, myself included, have opinions on these guys going into the season. There is nothing proving those opinions because nobody can see the future. I want to make sure that all of us look at both sides of the story here. What if we're right? What if we're wrong? And then weigh whether it's worth the risk or not. for a lot of these guys, it may be worth the risk and needs to be something we look at. And that's why we're putting together shows like this, is just to make sure you open your mind and see both sides of the story. Maybe you hear some of this information and you're like, listen, I don't care. I don't want him. All right, cool, no problem. But at least you have the information that you need to make that decision. If you don't have all the information and you're on the clock, you could find yourself scratching your head going, I don't know if I should trust this guy. I don't know if I want to do this. That's what we're trying to limit, and that's what these shows are all about. So if you do me a favor, if you're new here, hit the subscribe button, right? I mean, we're doing these kind of videos all off season. We're going to continue all year long, and hitting that subscribe button is going to make sure you stay, up to date and super informed on every player in the NFL. So when you play fantasy football, you can dominate again here in 2021. Hit the like button for me. We appreciate that support, and we look forward to talking to you down below in the comment section. We're still trying to stay super interactive down there, so leave those comments down below. I look forward to having those conversations with you guys. Hopefully you have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk to you later.